The aviation world has been flying in familiar airspace for decades. Two giants, Boeing and Airbus, have shaped what the skies look like with their single-aisle workhorses like the 737 and the A320neo family hauling millions of passengers every day. Every major city's airport is filled with them. Every budget airline banks on them. But that status quo? It's being tested, and not quietly. By 2030, the aircraft that could radically shift the balance of power may not even come from a legacy manufacturer. Instead, two new forces are advancing, one from China and one from California, and they might just change the game forever. First, take a look at what's happening in China. For over 30 years, Boeing and Airbus have locked horns in a global battle for supremacy, especially in the narrow-body segment. Their designs have evolved. Longer fuselages, new winglets, quieter engines, digital cockpits. But the basic concept has stayed the same: tube and wing. Now enter the Comac C919, a sleek, ambitious, domestically developed airliner that has already flown its first commercial passengers. It's not just a concept or a dream anymore. The C919 is in the air, with over 1,000 orders, mostly placed by Chinese airlines, signaling a clear intent: break the duopoly and dominate the home market. The C919 had its first flight back in 2017. That in itself made a statement. China was ready to move beyond importing planes and was stepping into the manufacturing arena with real intent. By December 2022, the aircraft had secured type certification from the Civil Aviation Administration of China, which was a crucial milestone, essentially declaring it airworthy and ready for service. Then, in May 2023, China Eastern Airlines brought it into commercial service, flying paying passengers and proving that Comac wasn't just talking, they were delivering. But this isn't about replacing a single aircraft type, it's about a broader ambition. Comac isn't only building the C919, it's following a structured path, starting with regional jets like the ARJ-21. That aircraft didn't make headlines globally, but it was important, a learning platform. With that under its belt, Comac stepped up to the narrow-body segment, taking on the A320neo and 737 MAX directly. And it doesn't stop there. There's already work underway on the C929, a wide-body jet aimed at competing with the Boeing 787 and the C939, which would target the biggest players in the sky like the Boeing 777X. What's clever about Comac's strategy is that it's playing the long game. Instead of rushing to grab international headlines, it's methodically building a full product lineup. Each new model builds on lessons learned from the last, and all of it is tied to China's larger goal: reducing reliance on foreign aerospace giants. The country has invested billions into its aviation sector, laying down the infrastructure needed for high-volume aircraft production. That includes modern assembly plants, composites research, and local supply chains. The government is backing this effort every step of the way, with subsidies, policies, and political muscle. For China, this isn't just about selling jets, it's about national prestige, industrial independence, and control over a critical technology. And with an internal market of hundreds of millions of passengers, Comac doesn't even need global approval to build momentum. Chinese airlines are under pressure to support the homegrown alternative, and many have placed significant orders to do just that. Comac is also partnering with local leasing firms to widen its aircraft's reach within the region. It's building not just aircraft, but an ecosystem. Maintenance, repair, training, all of that is being developed in parallel. The ARJ-21 already operates in several domestic networks and serves smaller airports where international jets once ruled. It's giving Comac the operational data and confidence to go bigger. Every flight is a test bed. Every route is a rehearsal for scaling up, and with the C919 now in service, Comac is officially in the commercial game. The next few years will show whether they can ramp up production without compromising quality. That's the real test, but make no mistake, this isn't a side project, it's a full-scale assault on the status quo in aviation. Now, the C919 itself, it's impressive. Designed to seat between 158 and 168 passengers, depending on configuration, and fly up to 5,555 kilometers, it's right in the sweet spot for domestic and regional routes. Airlines like China Eastern are already integrating it into their fleets, and more will follow, especially given how much of China's aviation growth is internal. With over 1,000 orders on the books, mostly from Chinese carriers, there's clear government and industry backing. However, it's not all smooth flying. Even though it's branded as a Chinese jet, the C919 relies heavily on Western technology. Its engines, the CFML-EAP-1C, a joint venture between GE Aviation and France's Safran. The avionics and flight control systems also come from US and European suppliers. That means Comac's success is still tied to the cooperation of Western companies, and that's a real vulnerability, especially in today's geopolitical climate. Export controls or sanctions could squeeze the supply chain in an instant. China knows this, and it's already looking to develop its own alternatives, but that takes time, resources, and expertise. Then there's the question of global competitiveness. While the C919 might dominate China's skies, breaking into international markets is a much taller order. Certification by the FAA or EASA, the aviation regulators in the US and Europe respectively, is a rigorous multi-year process. Without it, the aircraft can't be sold widely outside China. So far, there's no certification from either agency. For now, Comac's goal seems to be regional dominance, building volume, gaining experience, and slowly working toward global acceptance. But while all eyes were turned east, something just as radical has been quietly taking shape in the West. Not in Seattle or Toulouse, but in a factory-to-be in North Carolina. The name JetZero might not ring a bell just yet, but by 2030 it might be one of the most talked about companies in aviation. That's because JetZero isn't tweaking the existing playbook, it's tearing it up. Their vision? The Z4, a full-scale blended wing body aircraft known as a BWB. Now, this isn't science fiction. It's real, in development, and it's unlike anything flying today. If successful, it could deliver up to 50% fuel savings over traditional tube and wing airliners. That's not just an improvement, that's a leap. Let's break down what makes this design so special. Traditional airliners have a long tube with wings bolted on, a configuration that's efficient but also limited. JetZero's approach is different. The entire airframe is a flying wing. That means the fuselage itself helps generate lift. With a BWB, there's no clear boundary between where the wing ends and the fuselage begins. The result? Less drag, better lift distribution, and a massive reduction in fuel consumption. United Airlines has already thrown serious weight behind this project. They've committed to a pathway to buy up to 200 Z4 aircraft, 100 firm orders, and 100 options. That kind of interest doesn't happen without some serious behind-the-scenes evaluation. The U.S. Air Force is also watching closely. The same design could be used for tankers, offering stealthier, longer-range alternatives to current platforms like the KC-135 and KC-46. In fact, JetZero already has military funding backing parts of its development, echoing the same pattern Boeing followed decades ago when the KC-135 program helped fund the birth of the 707, the jet that went on to shape commercial aviation for a generation. JetZero isn't just some optimistic startup either. Its leadership team includes aerospace veterans from Boeing, Airbus, Gulfstream, NASA, and even SpaceX. These are people who know what it takes to get a plane certified, built, and delivered. And they're setting up shop with a $4.7 billion investment in a brand new state-of-the-art factory in North Carolina. That facility alone is expected to create over 14,000 jobs in the coming decades. The Z4 itself is designed to seat around 250 passengers and fly up to 5,000 nautical miles. That places it squarely in the middle of the market, competing with aircraft like the A330neo and Boeing 787. But instead of competing on price or minor fuel savings, it competes on an entirely different level: efficiency and environmental impact. In an era where sustainability goals are tightening and fuel prices are volatile, airlines are desperate for solutions. The Z4 offers one, but as game-changing as the design might be, it doesn't come without challenges. First, there's pressurization. Cylindrical tubes are naturally strong under pressure, which is why airliners have always looked like tubes. A BWB, being much wider and flatter, needs more advanced materials to handle the stress. JetZero is relying heavily on carbon fiber composites, not just for strength, but to keep weight down. These materials weren't even available at the level needed when NASA first started looking at blended wings back in the 90s. Now they are. Then there's airport compatibility. The Z4's shape means it has a wider footprint than current aircraft. That could cause problems at gates and taxiways. JetZero has looked into folding wingtips to help mitigate this, similar to what Boeing is doing with the 777X. But even so, adapting airports could be expensive, something airlines will push back on unless the benefits are overwhelming. Evacuation is another puzzle. FAA rules say you've got to be able to get everyone off the plane in 90 seconds, even with half the exits blocked. On a wide-body BWB, that's a completely different challenge. Visibility across the cabin, number and placement of exits, and even aisle layouts have to be completely rethought. The passenger experience is also different. Fewer window seats, longer rows, and different galley and lavatory placements. JetZero is already working on ways to improve the experience, like panoramic digital displays that mimic windows, but convincing passengers to accept a new layout won't be easy. If you're into aviation stories like this, where technology, business, and global dynamics all come together, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. There's so much more coming, and you won't want to miss what's next.